ready?
Yes.
All right. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Eastwood. I am a 19-year-old who decided to move away to California without my parents' approval to pursue a career in music and attempt to live off of the small amount of savings I accumulated by performing in skimpy outfits as a dancer on the strip. My parents gave up on trying to fix my behavior in most departments, one of those being alcohol addiction, and really the only thing they ask out of me at this point is do not get a tattoo or we will never support you again. And little do they know, my best friend, on the other hand, is the polar opposite of me. She's going to school to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. Impressive, right? She has 2 jobs, visits her parents constantly, dresses modestly, has never touched drugs, is 23 and has never used a curse word in her life. She's practically an angel. We grew up with parents on 2 completely different ends of the spectrum when it comes to parenting styles. My parents were authoritarian, which by definition means they show a lot of discipline and no warmth. And Jess, my best friend's parents, were permissive, meaning they are emotionally warm but reluctant to enforce rules or standards of conduct. So this has led me to my claim. Authoritarian or overly strict parenting makes for worse behaved children than permissive or laid back parenting. I will be giving you all a look into what exactly the behavioral results are of these 2 parenting styles and explaining why the behavior of children of authoritarian parents is far worse than the behavior of children with permissive parents. I have decided to talk about 3 different types of behavior, those being aggression, performance in school, and social skills. To start, according to an article entitled Ethnic Differences in the Link Between Physical Discipline and Later Adolescent Externalizing Behaviors by Kirby Deckard and Kenneth Dodge, the association between harsh parenting and child aggression depends on whether parental disciplinary actions are carried out in an emotionally controlled or an emotionally charged manner. These findings suggest that a parent's behavior has an effect on an array of social behaviors in their children, one of these being aggression. According to Alan Strauss and June Fleeson in their study of the origins of personality, it was found that aggressive physical and emotional interactions between parents and children form the basis for how children interact with others, and that children transfer some of the poor regulation strategies that they have learned from parent-child interactions to their own interactions with peers, resulting in incompetent peer relations. Because permissive parents, on the other hand, are not forceful at all when it comes to disciplining their children, or really in anything that they do, their child is a lot less likely to develop aggressive behavior than a child with authoritarian parents. Continuing on, authoritarian parents are also more likely to end up with children who do not perform well in school. As I have previously mentioned, parents using the authoritarian style of parenting tend to be strict, emotionally distant, and demanding. According to Damon Virile, who obtained a Master in Science in Psychology, in his article, The Relationship Between Parenting Styles and Academic Achievement, these constant demands and directions given to children by their parents can lead children to over-rely on their parents for guidance, which can hurt creative endeavors or academic performance in classes that require high amounts of creative energy, such as the arts. In a study done by the Department of Psychology at the University of Tehran, the relationship between parenting styles and children's academic achievement was examined using a sample of Iranian families. 371 high school students, along with their parents, were included in this study. All of the parents were asked to complete the Parental Authority Questionnaire, or PAQ, in order to determine what type of parenting style they aligned with. The PAQ is a questionnaire that was developed for the purpose of measuring permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative parental authority prototypes. It consists of 30 items per parent and yields permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative scores for both the mother and the father. The results of several studies have supported the PAQ as a psychometrically sound and valid measure of Baumann's parental authority prototypes. The current grade point average was calculated of each of these students to see their academic achievement, and the results indicated that both authoritative and authoritarian parenting styles were negatively associated with children's academic achievement. To add to this, a study done by the Louisiana State AG Center using surveys and interviews of adolescents and parents in the San Francisco Bay Area found that authoritarian parenting style was linked with lower grades for all ethnic groups. So as much as parents think that it's important to be strict on their children about getting good grades, it's actually that exact strictness that causes them to do the exact opposite. It causes children to get overwhelmed by their parents' expectations, lose hope, and completely give up on themselves. On the other hand, permissive parenting style showed no significant association with children's academic achievement. And finally, the ways in which each parenting style affects children's social skills. It was reported in a Dutch study containing a sample of 112 kids after observing the at-home behavior between these children and their parents. It was found that authoritarian parents were rated as less helpful and less popular by the teachers and classmates of these children. The children of these parents were also rated as less mature in their reasoning about moral issues. When researchers questioned 231 young adolescents about their cultural values and experiences with their peers, they found that kids from authoritarian homes were more likely to have experienced bullying, both as victims and perpetrators. Alternatively, bringing it back to Damon Viriel's article, children raised in permissive families tend to be self-confident and have absolutely no problem interacting with others. So to conclude, someone with authoritarian parents is more likely to be aggressive, do poorly in school, and lack social skills than someone with permissive parents. And that is all. I just shut myself down.
We need to bring ourselves down so we can rise up again. As a phoenix from the ashes.
All right, we got a little bit of an issue, as you probably realized there at the end, that your whole third point was in overtime. So it's one of those things where you have to plan that a little bit more carefully. We're giving you a little bit of leeway on this one because we have some time. But when we do the debates at the end, we're cutting people off when the time goes. So it'd just be one of those things that you want to be paying attention to. I thought you had, the introduction is a little long. It's effective at setting up what you're talking about, and I like the contrast between yourself and your friend as a way of describing kind of what this scenario is. It would be interesting if your parents had taken the PAQ so we could see where they fit and see if in fact they do fit the criteria that you're describing. But you do a pretty good job defining those two positions, and you've got a very clear statement of your goal and a very solid setup of what the supporting structure is going to be. So it's pretty easy to follow what you're talking about. Although when you got to that first point, the source that you cited sounded like it was really going to be talking about something different. As it turns out, the quote was perfectly fine and more generic. It's just the title of the article, I think, sounded like it was going in a different direction than your original point. So that was a little bit confusing, but the quote itself was fine. So I think in a situation like that, probably better just to quote the authors and leave out some of the other stuff that's being included there. You did a pretty good job explaining most of the assumptions about how these things are supposed to work. I do think that the criteria of defining aggressive and permissive needs to stay within the the descriptive terms that you're talking about, like the PAQ measurement that is being used in the one study, so that it doesn't just come around that it sounds like it's parents that people think are cool versus parents that people think are a-holes. That's not really the comparison that you want to be making here. But you did a good job, like I said, citing information, and you had a lot of good research that you said. When it comes to the strength, the testimony of your information was very solid, and you've got a lot of authority backing those up. The statistical information is a little bit thinner, and there's not a lot of factual data on this. We are dependent upon some research that's going on. The results that you give us from the 2 studies that you cite, which, by the way, you spent a lot of time kind of describing both of those studies, and that's probably another place where maybe you can do a little bit of condensing. There's not really any statistical information there. There's just these general conclusions that are being presented. And I like the idea of the general conclusions, but if there was some data that said, they were 3 times more likely to run into this kind of problem, or they have 25% more bullying or something like that, I think that would make your argument a little bit stronger. The delivery, when you're talking to us at the beginning, I think you do a good job. You, of course, have a lot of quoted material, so there's a lot of reading that goes on. But you have excellent transitions between the points where you were summarizing what each argument was, and that makes it easier to kind of follow what you're talking about. And so even though sometimes you're doing a little bit more reading than we would like, we could understand the argument and listen to it pretty clearly. So you're doing okay there. All right, thank you.